That #1 spot right now goes to the Baltimore Ravens after they beat the 49ers at home. The Dolphins, a big win over the Cowboys at home on Christmas Eve, moving into that #2 spot. The Niners falling to 3. Then we have the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, the Browns, and the Chiefs falling down to #8. So let's get into the power rankings. We're going to start with #1. We have the Ravens right now. Lamar Jackson certainly making a case to be MVP. And we were just talking about it off camera. Really interesting because the last couple of weeks it feels like that MVP conversation with the top 3 guys just keeps changing week by week, which I feel like is not always the case. It's been Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts a lot in the past season. So really interesting when it comes to that MVP conversation, Brady.
Yeah, I think if you could look back 5 or 6 weeks earlier this season, you would have saw Mahomes part of that conversation, Jalen Hurts part of that conversation. In the past few weeks, it was Dak Prescott as part of that conversation, then he was out. Then Brock Purdy's in. Now he's out as Lamar Jackson clearly outplayed him head-to-head in a primetime moment, too, that I think with only a couple weeks left, you give Lamar Jackson the odd, no doubt about it. Lamar Jackson's got the odds of being the favorite to win the MVP, especially if he wins out and stays at the top of the AFC playoff picture. And we can get into some of the other guys on this list moving forward, but the Baltimore Ravens have beaten 7 winning teams now by 14+ points. That is remarkable. So when you look at this record, how they've built it up so far, they are as legitimate as a top team in the NFL right now. But the other end of this conversation is, what do you make of the San Francisco 49ers with the beatdown that they took?
Let me first say something about the Ravens. Let's not forget, about 3 weeks ago, the Rams went there, had them beat, blew the game in overtime, and lost on a punt return. So we're definitely prisoners of the moment when it happens in this league. And
you can't dispute the fact, though, they've dominated against winning teams, too.
They have.
You can't say that about the Dolphins, who are #2 on your list. There's a number of teams you can't say that about.
Plus, I haven't played a lot of teams with a winning record, the Miami Dolphins.
That's part of it, but they've only beat 1 so far.
As for the 49ers, look, that was one of those games you got ambushed and it went bad quickly. And yeah, anything that could go wrong went wrong.
Ambushed or exposed?
Ambushed. I think Brock Purdy, look, tip passes at the line of scrimmage.
Now you're going to defend him for tip passes.
I'm not.
Are you the quarterback defender?
No, I'm not defending the quarterback. No, that's your siren.
There's
only one guy. Look, Brock Purdy was exposed a little bit. I mean, the first throw, they go down the field, and this throw here, they go down the field and get a touchdown here. That might be a different game right from the outset. They were dominating, bing, bang, bing, right down the field. You have to see that safety, Brady. That's just an elementary bad read right there on his part.
There's a number of times I think he was kind of staring down some of the targets. You talked about the batted balls. That's a portion of it, but look at that one. That was a contested catch anyway. The other batted ball that he got, that was batted up behind the line of scrimmage, could have pump fake moved around. He didn't play well. The reality and the truth is this. There was a lot of talk about whether or not he was going to be MVP worthy and is he a product of the system. It's beside the point. They need to get Christian McCaffrey the football. They're 1-3 in games where he rushes 14 times or less. And this was another product of that. So talk about Brock Purdy however you want in the MVP race, forget that. This is about San Francisco trying to figure out the right formula to going and winning a Super Bowl. I thought that got exposed a little bit because they got away from giving the football to their best player, and that's Christian McCaffrey.
They also got exposed a little bit on the defensive side of the ball. And part of the reason, I always say, what, if you block him, you beat him. But with Lamar Jackson, you don't necessarily have to block him because he can beat him with his legs, and I think we saw a little bit of that on Monday night. So I definitely think they were exposed on both sides of the ball. But they're still the best team in the NFC.
They're the best team in the NFC. It's a bad look, though, at this point in time of the season, the momentum that they had so far at home getting beat like that. I mean, that score was really out of hand. It was interesting to see Sam Darnold go in there and play and be able to lead them down for a touchdown, almost for a second one, too, at the end.
Quarterback controversy.
There's no quarterback controversy. I was curious to see, though, how he'd fit within that system. I think for the limited reps that you saw, didn't do too bad. The big question is, why do you have them at 3 instead of 2? You really think Miami's a better team right now than the San Francisco 49ers?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
All right. Why is that?
Huh?
Why do you think Miami's a better team than San Francisco right now?
I just think the way Miami's playing on both sides of the ball, I think offensively, look, they've had a lot of injuries on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay, that's fine, but now we get a chance to see next week
if they go to
what Miami and Baltimore look like.
They are playing them at their place. That's a little bit different.
You basically have become the college football playoff committee with these power rankings. Like, that's what you've become.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have.
No, don't ever compare
You're letting the schedule now dictate your power rankings.
I don't want Danny Cannell getting on me about the college football playoff system.
That's what you've become at this point.
Okay, before we move on to the Chiefs, though, I just want to ask you guys, when it comes to the Niners and the Ravens, obviously it's all about getting hot at the right time. Who do you have more faith in at this point when you look at the remaining schedule that could actually win the Super Bowl? Who would, if you had to pick one right now, who would it be, Pete?
Which of the teams?
The Ravens or the Niners?
The Niners.
Okay.
In large part because I think the NFC will be easier to navigate. In my mind. Okay. I think when you look at the AFC, there's a lot of teams that have the ability to go win it. And you know, Buffalo, Miami.
Right. I was just going to say, I mean, Buffalo's the team that we're not going to talk about, but we should talk about because they still have an opportunity to really leapfrog probably Miami in your rankings because they play Week 18. But given the fact that they play the Pats than Miami, it's a much easier schedule than what the Dolphins have to deal with the next couple of weeks, having to play Baltimore, having to then, you know, play Buffalo to win it. So the Bills are a team that are making, to me, huge strides as far as what we picture them doing when it's all said and done. But they could end up winning the AFC East. They could end up potentially being one of those top teams that no one wants to play. And Josh Allen, statistically speaking, you can make a big case for what he's doing from an MVP race standpoint. I would say this, if you're bullish on the Bills, go lay some money on Josh Allen to win the MVP because he's going to have a better statistical argument than Lamar Jackson when it's all said and done. And if they do win out, and depending on how Lamar Jackson plays versus Miami this upcoming week, maybe we see this musical chairs as far as who's at the top, then switch now to Josh Allen being back part of the conversation.
If Tua goes to Baltimore and throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns,
he'll be a part of it.
He's going to be in the conversation.
But then if Tua playing the Bills in Week 18 doesn't play as well and Josh Allen plays well, he's going to know.
Right, it's great. So.
A lot of what-if scenarios, and we're going to talk more about the Bills and the playoffs picture specifically in the AFC coming up a little bit later in the show. But let's talk about the Chiefs. They have dropped 4 spots to number 8 in your rankings. And Pete, you wrote it in your article online. You just said they have problems. If you're the Chiefs right now, how do you fix those problems as you're going into Week 17?
Well, the tackles have been bad, really bad, and I think that showed up. You didn't have Donovan Smith, so you played the rookie, and he struggled in a big way. Mars, he was awful. But again, the right tackle's not playing that well either, Jawan Taylor. So the pressure has sped up Mahomes. He doesn't have the great receivers on the outside, not that he's had those since Tyreek Hill left. Kelsey's not playing well. He's dropping balls, and I think they get a little too cute at times for my liking, and it cost them a touchdown. And Mahomes isn't playing great. And I think everything is making him press a little bit. And I think that you're seeing a different side of Mahomes with the outbursts and the anger and everything else. So I think you combine that all together and they're having problems moving the football.
8 times in 2022, this Chiefs offense scored 30 or more points. So far this season, there's only been 3 times. And 2 of those came Week 7 or before. So you can sense the frustration, and you have to ask yourself, okay, what is missing? What's the difference? Well, there's no Eric Bieniemy, and say what you want, but you look at Washington's offense, they've had some creativity. Now they've struggled of late, but still, they've been able to put up production and points. Look, as far as the wide receiver position goes, Juju Smith-Schuster is essentially, productivity-wise, has been replaced by Rashee Rice, their rookie, if you look at the stats and numbers to this point, at this point in time in the season. So it's hard to put your finger on what it is. Is it the lack of Eric Bieniemy, potentially? I mean, I would say that's the one thing right now you know definitively you can point to. Outside of that, to me, you could talk about the tackles. It's also a product, I think, Patrick Mahomes, too, is holding on to the football longer. And I think he's trying to wait for something to open up downfield. If you look at the time to throw metric, and it's a little bit skewed because a lot of times you get guys who actually, as far as time to throw, it ends up being a little bit longer because of their athleticism or mobility. They buy times create. So sometimes it can be a little bit deceptive. Here's one thing that's not. If you look at their losses, he's holding the football a little bit over 3 seconds, almost about 3.15 seconds per play. When they're winning, it's actually lower than 2.8. So clearly there's either a lack of pressure or he's not feeling the need to scramble around to make something happen or do something downfield. This team's better off getting the football out of his hand quick, taking what's there moving forward. Schematically, they need to do a better job of that because the tackle situation isn't going to change. And also, he's got to do a better job of that. He's got to do a better job of taking what's there in front of him, taking what the defense gives him, move on to the next play.
Line them out wide.
At some
snap
point,
it to the running back.
Well, and then they tried some of that, and it worked one play, and it backfired the next. But at some point, though, he might get himself hurt. He can't continue to run around like this and not suffer those hits.
He's
and not
always
suffer
run
that.
around like this.
He has not always run around like this. The last time he did it was a Super Bowl. We watched him, and he got crushed in that game. You can't do that for the rest of the season. I think you're going to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it's not just the tackles, by the way. Creed Humphrey has been one of the best centers in the league the last couple of years. His play is tailed down, so you got 2 tackles and the center not playing up to expectations. That makes it even tougher.
Yeah.
And Pete, you mentioned it, very uncharacteristic-like things we're seeing from Patrick Mahomes, not only in the game, but also the outbursts on the sideline, which brings us to another uncharacteristic comparison, which is kind of crazy when you look at the numbers, Brady. Baker Mayfield having arguably a better season than Patrick Mahomes.
Look, pay this man, all right? Give him an extension. He deserves it. He's earned it. There's still a lot of football left to be played, but he's given them a shot, because their defense has not always stepped up and played well when they've needed to. Baker's having arguably his best year of his professional career. He's healthy. It looks like they're going to have a real shot of winning the division, and who knows what happens once they get into the playoffs. But as far as the comparison goes, look, apples and oranges to me in that regard. I just think Baker Mayfield deserves more credit for the way he's played this year.
He's been phenomenal in the last, 5 games. He really has. I mean, he's carrying this offense. And we compare him to Patrick Mahomes. If he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, we don't know what he would be doing either.
Again, apples and oranges.
Yeah, but Baker Mayfield's played well, and I'm with you. Give him a contract extension. I like Baker Mayfield because I like guys that play with an attitude, a little bit of chip on his shoulder, and he does, and it shows up week by week. And he's physical, he's tough. He ran through some guys the other day. Got a little dinged up. You got to be careful with that, but I love what he's done. This team is getting better. They had to play a lot of guys because of injuries, and now you're starting to see guys come back. Devin White was back. He made some plays. They're getting healthier, and I think they're dangerous if they get into the postseason.
And credit Dave Canales, their offense coordinator. It's his first year calling plays for the Bucs. He's really created a system that I think plays to everyone's strengths, but most importantly, Baker Mayfield's. And now you're seeing it pay off dividends with the way this team's playing down the stretch.
Every time I think of Baker Mayfield, Pete, I just think of you saying he's got that fire in the belly. That's what I always think of.
He does have fire in the belly. I like fire in the belly. I don't want a mealy mouth playing quarterback.
They need to continue that because their work's not done. I think they've got to win out and try to have a chance of winning the division.
All right, Pete Prisco, Brady Quinn, breaking down Pete's latest power rankings. Just a reminder, you can find those right now over on CBSSports.com. And the NFL on CBS returns for Week 17. We got a full slate coming your way, including Dolphins and Ravens, 1 o'clock Eastern on New Year's Eve. You can watch your local game live or, of course, stream all the action on Paramount+.